This story is from the first chapter of the memoirs of Zhenya Kapchits. Zhenya passed away in 2005 at the age of 90. But a couple of years prior to his death, he sat down and wrote out his entire life story. He knew what a unique life he lived, which is why he felt it was important that his descendants could have a document that detailed this special time in history. Zhenya's son, Boris, got a hold of these memoirs and passed them down to his daughter, Olga, who passed them down to her son and film student, Max Karpman. You see, Max was at a pivotal moment in his life. He was entering his final year of university and was about to graduate with a film degree that held absolutely zero real-life application. Max was lost and unsure of what he wanted from life. And so when he came across the memoirs of his great-grandfather, he figured that it was within this document that he could finally learn some worthwhile lessons.
I was born on April 11th, 1914, in a place that's hard for my descendants to imagine, a shtetl. The shtetl was known as Starobin, an abandoned place far, far away in the middle of the Belarusian woodland. One day I was out collecting potatoes for my family and I came across a sign for corn on the cob. Although my mother had given me just enough kopecks for the potatoes, I figured she wouldn't notice if I allocated some funds to buy that corn. When I came home that day, I was met with a scolding that stayed with me for the rest of my life.
Hey Zhenya, it's Max, your great-grandson. So I know you can't hear me right now, cause you're dead, but I wanted to let you know that I'm making a movie about you, and I'm recreating scenes from your life. I just did the scene where you were 8 years old, and you were living in the shtetl, and you stole some money to buy corn on the cob, and your mother gave you this super nasty lecture. I thought it was a pretty funny story, actually. Just the fact that you were 90 when you wrote your memoirs, and you remembered it all these years later. It made me think of my life at 8, which was obviously very different from yours. I was living in Moscow at the time, and my childhood was pretty awesome. I had a ton of friends and lots of interests. I was really into soccer, and I know you were a huge Dynamo Moscow fan back in the day, which is cool because one of the players lived down the street from us and he would join our games on the field. I was always playing soccer or playing FIFA with my friends. Man, you would have loved FIFA. But anyway, it's been really cool reading about you so far. I feel like most people don't know where they come from, but I don't know, like I have this document that tells me exactly where it is I come from. It's pretty awesome.
At the age of 16, my family left the shtetl and settled in Moscow. I was working at an umbrella factory when the war broke out, and the government began enrolling workers in the People's Militia. We weren't the type to be sent to the front lines, more of the reserves in case something were to happen. My battalion was filled with out-of-shape drunks who spent their time drinking anything they could get their hands on. After a night of heavy drinking by the others, we were woken up early for a 50-kilometer hike. Men from our unit dropped like flies. One soldier broke his ankle on the hike, and I had to carry him around my shoulder for the last 3 kilometers.
Hey Zhenya, what's up? Just finished reading about that time you were a Soviet soldier? I can't believe you were 16 when you did that. I wasn't really doing much when I was 16. I was living in a place you probably never heard of, Issaquah, Washington. It's this suburb of Seattle. It's a pretty cool place, but at this point we moved around so many times it kind of took a toll on me. Like, I went from being super outgoing and expressive to a lot more shy and moody. I do remember from the memoirs, though, that you were really studious after you got discharged, and you studied accounting and engineering and ended up managing this big engineering project in Siberia during the war, and how rare that was for a Jew at the time to do that. Which is really cool, but me personally, I hated school so much. You would not be proud of the way I behaved in a school setting. It was at 16, though, that I did take my first film class. I actually really enjoyed it. Mine were always a little out there, because I just didn't want to make anything boring, and people were pretty judgmental about them. 5 years later, though, I realized that doesn't go away. In fact, it actually gets worse. Besides that, though, I didn't really think high school was that great. But I think it was mostly because of how much I complained about it. I just hated reading those boring novels and having to do all this math all the time that I couldn't understand. But it would have been interesting to read your memoirs when I was 16, because I wonder if it would have made me realize that school actually is a privilege.
Shortly before moving to Moscow, when I was a young boy in Staroben, I fell in love with a girl from my sister's friend group. Her name was Ida, and she was beautiful. We didn't see each other a lot, nor expect to in the future because we were both moving away to different places. But, in between our staggered moves, I managed to impress her with a beautiful greeting card from Moscow. That way, I knew she would be certain of my feelings for her. We kept in touch via handwritten letters for over a decade. Truthfully, I couldn't get Ida out of my mind, so eventually I asked her to meet me outside of Moscow, a proposal that was positively received. And as you know, we've been married ever since.
Zhenya, that was a beautiful love story. Ida died a couple years after you did, but I actually do have some memories of her. I can vividly remember what she looked like and her apartment in New Jersey. I don't know if we ever really communicated, though, because I don't think she spoke any English, and at the time I didn't speak any Russian. But yeah, man, I wish I had an Ida of my own to tell you about, but sadly I don't. I mean, I'm only 21, but then again, you did meet your wife when you were literally 6 years old, so maybe I am behind. But my dad met my mom when he was 40. Oh god, I really hope it doesn't take that long. Nowadays we have all these dating apps, so you get to meet a lot of people, but also everybody wants a love story like yours. Although I feel like you would have done really well on Hinge. I'm graduating college and moving to LA in a couple weeks. I'm pretty excited that I get to decide what to do with my life. I feel like you never had the chance to really decide what you wanted to do with your life. Like, everything was based on survival and what you could do as a Jew. But now I can do literally whatever I want. And I'm not sure how to feel about that. But I do know that it's because of you. So thank you, Zhenya. I hope I make you proud.